You're tuning in to the Raised by Rentals program. This podcast will contain strong language and spoilers for decades-old media properties.
Join us.
Welcome, everybody. This is the podcast where we examine pop culture franchises of the VHS era, improv news stories, talk hard, screw up, and underline meaningful passages in Moby Dick to imagine how we might improve our favorite movies, TV, and games. I'm Josh.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Andy Rooney.
All this on 60 Minutes.
Mike, are you... Wait a second. Andy Rooney, how'd you get in here?
Well, let me tell you. What's going on. I'm such a big fan. Oh, wait, it's not Andy Rooney. He's dead. It's Dawn. It's Dawn, guys. I'm here.
God, even worse.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
What the fuck?
Mike, you got to go to work, right? I think I think we're done.
Wow.
Oh, hey, Dawn.
Wow.
Hey, welcome. Thanks.
Wow.
Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for the welcome. Oh, how very. Eskimo. What?
Well, since you dropped by the Raised by Rentals parlor, and I guess since you're here anyway, you might as well talk about something.
You know, I think you have a crazy idea.
Talking to Dawn, is that the crazy idea?
I think that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
No, I think there's a crazy idea here because the last time that we talked, Dawn, it wasn't even to each other.
No.
It was in response to each other on different episodes of different podcasts at different times.
It was true. This is very true. Because someone was angry that they were part of a certain boogeyman's closet. Wow.
I know. I got super jealous, right? Last year, and Mike, you can fill the details in because you know I have a terrible memory, but you had invited Dawn and Sam. And who else was on the episode? Was it you, Dawn, and Sam? I feel like someone else was there.
Maurice was there.
Maurice was there to talk about Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. Mm-hmm. And as soon as the episode was announced, or as soon as the movie was announced as a pick to vote on, I was like, oh, I love that movie. But for some reason, it didn't occur to me to say to you that I wanted to be on it because I fucking love that movie. Yeah, and then when the episode came out, I was like, oh, sweet. And then Dawn and Sam were on there. And again, I was like, all right, cool. This will be fun. But then you guys got into all this talk about the Lawrence brothers and Christian Slater and gargoyles and Radon Chong. And I'm just like yelling at my truck radio, like, what the fuck? And like, I want to be there. I have a crush on Christian Slater too, you know.
And then I heard about this. Okay. And I suggested that me and Josh here just do our own podcast about Christian Slater, but no, he don't want to do that.
Well, I
he don't want to spend all that time editing. Oh,
the Christian Slater Power Hour.
Yes,
exactly. 100% more Christian Slater.
Right, Christian Slater all the time. Talk hard. Let's go.
Ooh, there it is. Talk hard, Christian.
That, honestly, if there was a podcast about Christian Slater, it would have to be called Talk Hard.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, come on.
Or we would do like Heather's Minute as a follow-up to the Star Wars Minute and all the other like 1 minute podcasts that are out there. Which, if anyone listening hasn't heard of those, or you're not into the minute movies, there's a whole shitload of them. I forget the website where they have them all listed out, but if you go to Star Wars Minute and look that up, it's been going on for years. And they have on their website, they have a link to like hundreds of other podcasts where people will copy their format, which is to watch a movie 1 minute at a time. And they do an episode every day about every minute of the movie. And it's fucking awesome. Because they just go into like ridiculous minutia, right? Just crazy little details. The original Star Wars trilogy and I think the Back to the Future trilogy were my favorite ones, but I've listened to a bunch of them. But I totally would have done like a Heather's Minute. And I mentioned this as a follow-up on a Raised by Rentals episode. I don't remember which one it was now, but where I went through this whole spiel, was like, look, I got to like editorialize for a second about this episode of The Boogeyman's Closet. And I went into all of this and I said, yeah, I mean, it's true that if I wasn't doing Raised by rentals, I would totally do some kind of a Christian Slater centric podcast, like a watch through, of everything he was in, or like I said, one of the movies by minute. And that's what it's called, movies by minute. Yeah, moviesbyminute.com, I think, is that website. But anyway, so
it'll happen one day. Me and Josh will do it. We're gonna start with like Legend of Billie Jean, and then we'll work our way up to the show Breaking In. We got this.
Well, again, my same complaint is I barely have time to edit one podcast. Now, being on the podcasts that's a different story. Like, recording them is fun, but it's all the editing and all the other, like, the social media and all the admin bullshit. Like, I barely have time to get this one done. As it is, I'm recording, like, 2 days in a row, which for Mike is probably nothing, but for me, it's like eating up my whole weekend.
I'm recording 5 days in a row this week.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm strapped for time this week.
Oh, jeez. So, as a consolation prize, I thought, what better way to kick off the early part of our third season than by doing a Christian Slater focused episode. Our first guest of season 3, first guest of 2024, have Dawn come on, and yeah, we'll do 100% more Christian Slater as an episode, and we'll just have some fun with it. And of course, we need to focus on what, to me, and fuck you two, but to what?
Whoa!
But what to me,
I was all for the Slaterverse, but if you're gonna be
no, but to me are the 3 quintessential VHS era Christian Slater movies. Mm-hmm. I love Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. I love Interview with the Vampire. I even love Cuffs. But for me, it's Heathers, Gleaming the Cube, and Pump Up the Volume. So that's what we're here to talk about. So I figured, let's just get together. Let's watch these 3 movies for like the 100th time each, because they're all so freaking good. They're absolute classics. And yeah, we'll get together and we'll figure out some way to mash them up and have a good time. And this is absolutely completely by the seat of our pants. So
we
let's
really
see what
got
happens.
no ideas, guys. We're just flying by on this.
So I guess we'll just see what happens.
I mean, I will say of these 3 movies, the only one that I had watched with any regularity for the last 20 years is Heathers. Heathers is just one of those comfort movies that gets put on a lot. I would say at least once a year, if not more. Whereas Gleaming the Cube and Pump Up the Volume, I have not seen for decades, and that makes me feel incredibly old. I watched both of them this week, and I forgot how much I fucking loved Pump Up the Volume. That movie is so good. Like, I need to add it to my collection of movies. I'm sad that I don't have a copy of it yet, because it's just so fucking good. Gleaming the Cube, I enjoyed myself, but yeah, it's pretty cheesy.
It's kind of funny to spot like Tony Hawk as himself and then Tony Hawk as the stunt skater. Like, you're trying to figure out which one's which.
Let's kind of talk about what the movies are, who the characters are. I'm assuming that anyone listening to this is probably familiar with at least Heathers, because that's an absolute 80s classic. It's a modern classic if the 80s can be considered modern. And I would agree with you. Gleaming the Cube and Pump Up the Volume are lesser known. For me, it's almost the opposite when it comes to those two, because for me, Gleaming the Cube was the one out of that one and Pump Up the Volume that I've seen the most times. I tend to put that one on as a good background comfort movie when I'm just doing the chores around the house or whatever, folding laundry, just something to put on where I don't have to watch it because I've seen it so many times. But I like the music, I like the skateboard tricks, I like, stopping to watch, Tony Hawk and the other pros, and the names are escaping me off the top of my head, but there was a lot of pros at the time who were in the movie. There's also cool little Easter eggs and stuff in the background. And I watched it with my 11-year-old not that long ago. I just had it on in the background. He walked in the room and just saw skateboards and sat down. And I don't think that he understood what was going on with the murder plot, but it was still a fun movie. I honestly think that the climax ruins the movie. Ruins is too strong of a word, but I didn't think it was corny until he suited up in his black and chrome gear and
yes! What are you talking about?
He turns into a superhero all of a sudden, and I'm like, okay. I mean, when I was 8, it was badass, but when I'm
takes out the bad guy by jumping a sweet ramp.
fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And there were a bunch of other movies that were similar to this that came out at the time. And one that I think of the most.
Rad.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Rad. And there was one about motocross that was called Winner Take All. And I remember my brother used to watch that one all the time. And I'm picturing it in my head right now, but I can't think of who the actors were. But yeah, it's the same movie as Rad, but with dirt bikes.
Yeah.
And I think one of the dudes from Solar Babies is in it.
I need to revisit Solar Babies.
Yeah, we have to get my brother on to do a like 80s sci-fi crossover, like Solar Babies with like robot jocks or an arena or one of those types of movies, you know.
Excuse me, the easiest one is Solar Babies with rollerball. Hello.
Oh yeah.
I mean, yeah, that would fit together pretty well.
Oh yeah, for sure. My brother's probably listening to this going, you know.
He's like, yes, I'm on it.
He's probably reminding me of some movie that I completely forgot about. He's like, what do you mean? The obvious one is fill in the blank. And I just can't think of what it is right now. But yeah, he was really into those low budget sci-fi movies in the 90s.
But can we really say that we go for the obvious when we're trying to mash together Heather's Gleaming the Cube and pump up the volume?
Well, I still say we're leaving out Binks from Legend of Billie Jean, but I'll allow it.
Yeah.
God, that's another one I have. I don't think I've seen that one since I was a kid. Like, I need to rewatch that.
I was trying to watch it before all this too. I have a bootleg copy somewhere, but I couldn't find it. Like, it's not streaming anywhere either.
Yeah, I remember not liking that movie very much, which is part of why I was like, yeah, let's not do that this time. I mean, I'm not saying we can't come back to the Slaterverse at some point, and I'll go back and revisit it.
Because obviously we're having a Slaterverse.
There's a whole lot of obviously's being thrown around that I'm deflecting.
Obviously, we're having a Slaterverse. But
there's lots of other great Slater roles out there too. Like he has a cameo role in The Wizard that I love. You know, that Nintendo competition movie with Fred Savage.
I'm just gonna say he's in Hot Tub Time Machine 2. All right, I will talk about Hot Tub Time Machine or 1 or 2. I don't care. I'll talk about it.
Oh,
By the way, I watched that today too. I know that has nothing to do with this, but I watched that today.
See, I love the first Hot Tub Time Machine. The second one, like,
it's not great, but I love it.
It's funny, but yeah, it pales in comparison to the first one so much. And it's like, it's a bummer because I love the first one, and then the second one was like, okay, it was good. Yeah, it was like,
it's all right. Yeah. But he's in a lot of good stuff. You know, he was in, I mean, back in the day, he was in like Murder in the First and Untamed Heart. And yeah, I mean, he eventually kind of dropped out of like the leading roles and started taking on like indie films and TV. And, you know, he's kind of been bouncing in and out of like the A-list for years, but he's done some really, really solid stuff. So yeah, I mean, I definitely would be interested in revisiting some of his more, I keep saying more modern, and I'm talking about like the last time I think I could have truthfully said that I've seen everything he was ever in was when like Broken Arrow came out.
You didn't see Hard Rain? Come on.
No, I mean, I did. I've seen a lot of the stuff he's been in after that, like Hard Rain and Very Bad Things, but just not like every single thing, you know. But back up to a certain point, it was like, I may not remember all the movies now, but at a certain point in my life, I had definitely seen every single Christian Slater movie that was at my like local movie time. You know, like I exhausted that shelf.
Well, and that's the thing. When we were kids, it was like he was just so damn badass. So it's like, I want to see his movies. You know, it's like,
yeah. I mean,
I liked him in Heather. She was cool.
Yeah,
Josh said he was dreamy. I just kind of wanted to be him. You know, it's potato.
Do you want to be him? Do you want to fuck him? I mean, it's tomato.
A little bit of both.
Oh man. So here we are, and let's see if we can figure out how to fit these guys together. So let me just go through some facts and figures a little bit again for people who may not quite remember all the details. So again, I think Heathers is the one that people remember the most. Of the three, it came out first, 1988, and Christian Slater plays the most badass of all badasses in the history of Hollywood, Jason J.D. Dean. And it took me until this most recent watching to realize that his name is a combination of like James Dean and Jack Daniels, which I think is pretty cool. Maybe some Jason Voorhees thrown in there since it was the 80s. And just everything about Heathers was the coolest fucking thing imaginable in 1988 and in 2024. It was the fashion, the dialogue, like the witty quips, the smart and sassy teenagers, the music, all the little Easter eggs. It was just, you could not make a fucking cooler movie. Winona goddamn Ryder is the main character. I mean, Jesus.
And bullies knew how to bully. Let's just say bullies knew how to bully then.
Right?
Yeah. Now they hide behind the keyboards.
Back then, they just beat your ass at a funeral.
Yeah.
It's funny because it's true.
I don't think I ever noticed it until recently, like my last couple of watchings, that like fucking Kurt and Ram beat that one dude up and make him scream like, I want to suck big dicks at a funeral right outside the church with all these people around.
Yeah, but okay, I would side note here. Why are they at that funeral? Like, the jocks I get. Why are the nerds at the funeral?
Well, because
like,
everybody
if it was me,
wanted
I would have been like,
Yeah.
"Fuck you!" Like,
No, it was it was Heather Chandler's funeral. Like everybody wanted, again, everyone wanted to be her or fuck her.
Yeah, and they do show that with the nerds, where the one looks over at him, he's like, "Blah," and like spews out his milk. He's like, "Oh my god, she looked at me!" Like, even though she despised them, they worshipped the ground she walked.
Yeah.
So, you know,
I'm just saying that's not how it was in real life.
Yeah.
Because
No,
I would
no,
have been like, "Fuck you!" Yeah.
Oh yeah, no one would have shown up. But yeah, no, I mean her ghost even says it later in the dream sequence to Veronica, and I don't have it quoted, but she mentions the more people were at my funeral. Her funeral was like it was like the social event of the season.
I do have to say that when you were talking about the two nerds getting beat up at the funeral, the thing that makes me laugh every fucking time when he's like, "Say you like to suck big dicks," and he's like, "Okay, you like to suck big dicks," and then they start beating on him, and he's like, he makes him say it again, and he just starts ad-libbing. He's like, I like to suck big dicks. I can't get enough. I fucking lose it every time. I'm like, dude is riffing. Why is he riffing now?
Because everything in Heathers is so ridiculously over the top. I mean, it's just over the top, like especially in the dialogue. Everything is just bonkers. Like the kids, by the way, are all rich as fuck. Every single person in this movie lives in even the stoners. I mean, you see Veronica's house a bunch of times, and she's got like an actual like statuary garden in her massive backyard.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a state park. All manicured hedgerows and shit. Like, but of course, like the 80s and every movie back then, all these rich country club people go to like regular ass high school with like the dregs of society.
And that's the whole thing with Heathers. It was basically just holding a mirror up to John Hughes and poking fun at all of his movies. And all of his movies had that. Like, everybody was rich, even like the loser kids were rich. Everybody had like these huge like wealthy or like their wealthy homes that they lived in, but they all went to shitty schools. They were in Shermer, Illinois, and they were in Shermer, Ohio. So, or Sherwood, Ohio, or whatever.
Ohio.
Sherwood.
Yeah, Sherwood.
The name is obviously a riff. Yeah, Sherwood being similar to Shermer. I mean, that was on purpose for sure. But yeah, I totally agree. I like how you said holding up a mirror to the John Hughes movies, because John Hughes had the same issue where all these like rich people go into school with kids who obviously weren't. I mean, it's the whole plot of like every Molly Ringwald movie,
Exactly.
and which of course now is just completely unrealistic, because all those rich people would be going to amazing schools in their rich white school districts,
Yeah,
right.
But back then it was like everyone just went to the same school for whatever reason. And I remember I was watching this one with Tegan, who was 16. And first of all, it's a little bit weird watching this with your kid with some of the dialogue,
Yeah. Understandable.
But they had seen it with their friends at a sleepover one night. So I was like, you know what? The dad in me is like, what the fuck are you watching that for? With your friends. But the regular dude in me was like, fuck yeah, I would have watched it years ago with my friends at a sleepover.
I would have been like, why haven't I shown you this earlier?
Yeah.
I mean,
because
to be fair, I think we all saw it when we were children.
Yeah, I was like 10. I was like 10 years old. Yeah.
I saw all these movies when they came out in VHS, which would have been within like a year of their release. So we were like 9, when I saw this movie.
our video store had to get another copy of Heathers because me and my brother would literally walk in, return it, and then the other one would rent it. Like we would just keep doing it, and then finally it wasn't until like it hit HBO and we were able to like record it off of HBO. Because back then, guys, like remember things didn't come out on VHS for like a year after they were released and all that crap. Yeah. So the video store we used to rent to had to like get another copy of it because we were always like renting it and nobody else could rent it.
Oh yeah, and Mike, I'm sure you remember living in Niagara Falls. There were several video rental stores, and so even though there was one or two, depending on what year it was, one or two within walking distance of my house, but there were other ones. So if my parents were into the idea of renting movies for the night, we could go to a movie rental store. And, by the 90s, there'd be like 100 copies of Titanic. But at the time, again, there'd be like one copy of every movie because they cost like $80 each or something ridiculous. And we'd go to one store and they wouldn't have Clash of the Titans. So we'd go to the other store. They still had it in stock, Mm-hmm. And so I remember movie night turned into a lot of driving around until everybody had a movie that they liked. And because it took so much time, we would make sure we got, one or two for everybody in the family. And then we'd have movies to watch all weekend. But yeah, by the 90s, it's so easy that I would stop in the Blockbuster on my way home from school and just grab the next movie. Where I remember there was one year where everything was on discount it was like a happy hour thing between certain times of the day. So on my way home from school, if I stopped in before like 4 o'clock or something, you could get a not new release for $1. So I literally just went to like the genre shelves and was like, I'll start with like sci-fi and just watched from the letter A until I got bored. And then we'll go to horror and do the letter A and B until I get bored, and then go to drama. And like every day I was just stopping and picking up something and just grabbing, or like every Christian Slater movie or every Spielberg movie or whatever. That I remember for like 2 years we did that. And that was basically the end of my being on the pulse of what was happening in movies, because I don't watch nearly as much shit now.
Oh yeah.
I remember doing that exact thing in the summer of 97, because Blockbuster had that thing where it was like 2 movies for $1 if it wasn't a new release. And I kept going, and it was like a one night rental. You get 2 movies for one night for $1. And I used to go with Tom Thorpe. The two of us would go and get horror movies, and we would just anything we hadn't seen, we're like, grab it. Like that's how I watched stuff like Death Spa for the first time. Just like, we haven't seen it, throw it on. But yeah, that was a fun time.
Sorry, I remember that was also how I watched a bunch of movies that I probably wouldn't have watched otherwise, like Ben-Hur or even like Schindler's List when I was a teenager. Like it was on 2 VHS tapes, and it was so like, serious and sad and in black and white. But again, like you could get them for like $1 on my way home from school. So yeah, I ended up watching a whole bunch of stuff like that. But by then I did not pick up Gleaming the Cube because I'd already seen that one 1,000 times and had it taped off HBO. That was the next movie in our list here, which came out in 1989, where Christian Slater plays Brian Kelly, a decidedly less anarchistic teenager, but still, in his own words, a total fucking screw up. And so he's here's what IMDb has to say: a young avid skateboarder uncovers a government conspiracy while investigating his adoptive brother's mysterious death. And like, wait, was that a government conspiracy? I thought it was just like some smugglers they were smuggling in weapons to Vietnam, right?
Yeah, it had nothing to do with the government.
IMDb is leading us astray, because we all know how accurate it is, right? It's perfect
absolutely.
Information. Everything on there is exactly gospel.
Well, because remember, none of these were supposed to star Christian Slater.
Yeah,
they were all supposed to star Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yes.
Oh yeah, exactly. And Sylvester Stallone was going to play his Vietnamese brother Vinny.
Yes.
Hey, you gotta stop with all the skateboarding, You gotta hit the books.
Hey, you made a move. It was a good move. That was a good move. Yeah, I just started smoking today. Yeah.
Oh man. But in reality, I mean, he's the typical 80s fishtail skateboard riding skateboarder who, is fucking around with his friends. The frosted tips and the spray painted jean jacket, hanging out with Tony Hawk and Gleaming the Cube, whatever the fuck that means. But
let's not forget, let's not forget, has a best friend that lives in a bomb shelter.
Yes,
I
Yabo.
was so jealous of that dude's room.
Fuck yeah, dude. Yabo is like the coolest character in the movie. I love that guy.
I was like, damn it, I want a room like that. I still
Right.
want a room like that.
He's so cool. But yeah, so his Brian Kelly's brother, his adopted brother, gets murdered, and then they make it look like a suicide, but he doesn't believe it, so he has to investigate the murder, and he gets caught up in this. It is a conspiracy, not a government conspiracy. It's a conspiracy to smuggle guns into Vietnam, and like this one rich white guy to make a whole shitload of money off the deal, skimming off the top of the books. But it's a fun movie. But yeah, it's a little weird when he goes through this like emotional journey of dealing with his brother's death and learning how to grow up and repair his relationship with his parents and figure out who he is and do some soul searching. All that's amazing. And then he ultimately decides to be like a super skateboard superhero.
Don't forget the whole dating my dead brother's girlfriend.
Yeah,
He
it's really weird.
You know what? That was weird. And when I was a kid, I totally just thought that he was like trying to like become his brother or like replace his brother by like dressing nice and riding a bicycle and carrying a briefcase and being this total like nerd and dating his girlfriend. And then I realized now as an adult that it was completely strategic, that he was just trying to get closer to her dad the whole time. So
Yeah.
there's even those scenes where they go on dates and he does nothing but ask her about her dad the entire time, which
Yep.
flew over my head as a kid, but as an adult I'm like, he never liked her. I mean, he might have fallen for her eventually, but he was just like stringing her along trying to like get close to her dad.
Exactly.
But next up, we had Pump Up the Volume, 1990. Now Christian Slater plays Mark Hunter, a.k.a. Happy Harry Hard-On, a.k.a. Hard Harry. And IMDb is a little bit more accurate this time, that he runs a pirate radio station and causes an uproar when he speaks his mind and enthralls fellow teens.
Yep.
It's a little corny to say it that way, but yeah, I mean, the dude's got like a ham radio set up, and he jacks into the public airwaves and has this X-rated radio show. He's a high school student going on the radio every night pretending to jerk off and just go on these like long-winded monologues about how fucked up society is. And I thought it was interesting to note, though, that all three of these characters, Jason, Brian, and Mark, while they have differing personalities, at some point in the movie, they all go on a similar speech where they bitch about America being nothing but strip malls and 7-Elevens on every corner.
What is it? The Snappy Snack Shack.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a big part of why I think of these three characters together all the time. It's the sort of like, the Screw Up trilogy, because they're all kind of the same dude, but, to different levels of psychosis,
Right.
or sociopathy, because, JD like loses his shit.
Yeah. No, he fucking goes off the deep end.
So let's talk about these movies, and we figure out what can we do to mash these up and get like a Slaterverse going with these three characters. They're all, in the, let's say, late 80s, 88 to 1990. Again, they all kind of have a similar personality. They're all supposed to be teenagers, even though, I mean, I don't know how old Christian Slater was, but he certainly wasn't in high school, at the time. They're all like pretty fucking cool dudes. JD just in general, Brian Kelly when he's in his skate punk form, and then, Mark Hunter when he's pretending to be Hard Harry on the radio. So they, again, I think that it makes sense for them to mash up, but we need to figure out, how do we do that? So let's see. First of all, do we care about them staying in the same order in terms of like the events in the movies?
Well, I think the you mean like the times that the movie came out, or the events that happen in the films?
I guess it doesn't really matter. I'm just trying to think about, if we're going to like put these movies together, are they all happening at the same time? Is one happening like before the other one? Does it matter? Like just kind of like set some ground rules in terms of like, what's our world building?
Okay, well, I think that if we're gonna take all three of these movies and try to mash them together, or at least mash the character together, we're definitely gonna have to play a little fast and loose with the timeline, because I feel like because of where JD ends up, like that would have to ultimately be where it ends.
Okay.
So even though that came out first, we'd probably have to put that at the end. But again, it could be like, fucking Star Wars, we're telling the middle of the story first, and then
here's the thing, because both JD and not Brian, Mark recently moved to these new schools after I'd say they all start at one school, and then afterwards those two move off onto other schools, like a prequel kind of thing.
Yeah. See, that makes sense.
I'm thinking it's the same guy. I'm thinking, that all three of these kids can be the same guy. Like they don't have to necessarily be completely different characters. Because let's look at Gleaming the Cube, where he's arguably the best person of the three characters. He's just your average teenage slacker. He wants to, be out there skateboarding with his friends and all that. Isn't really paying attention to stuff while his brother is trying to make something of himself. And he gets himself tied up into this whole gun running operation and pokes a little too deep and ends up getting himself killed. So now you have, was it Brian Kelly? Was that his name? Yeah, Brian Kelly.
Yes.
So you have Brian trying to find out what happened to his brother. So he basically gets in over his head, ends up toppling the villain and saving the day, solving his brother's murder and exposing this gun running operation. So now here's my thought on this though. That's not going to be the end of it. It isn't just one general and a white dude that were running guns to Vietnam, and that's the only part of the operation. There are clearly going to be other people involved. And if some little fucking skater punk just screwed up their big operation, don't you think someone's going to come after him? Someone's going to try to kill that kid.
Okay. So yeah, that makes sense.
So what if after the dust settles, somebody comes after him, or a group of people come after him? What if, he's forced into a witness protection program, or maybe his parents are killed and he's put in a foster family, and that's why he's so disparate and separated from his parents in Pump Up the Volume.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. Okay. So I think there's something cool we could do here. And I think you're right when you were saying that Heather's would have to be at the end, because while it happens off screen, it's pretty definitive that JD dies at the end of Heather's. Yeah. Veronica literally watches him blow himself to smithereens. Spoiler alert. Sorry, everybody.
And lights her cigarette off of it.
I mean, if you go by the original script, they all died. But
True.
Okay.
Yeah. But no. Veronica lives happily ever after to go watch Rentals with Martha Dumptruck.
But that's not in the original script. But okay.
But that's the heartwarming ending.
Ended. Yes.
That's the heartwarming ending that we want to see. Because the name's Dunstock. It's not Dumb Truck. Just cursed as fuck with no such luck.
My future plans include that much.
In the original script, she becomes prom queen. So, duh.
Okay.
Yeah. But we're not talking original scripts. We're talking filmed and produced.
I didn't read no original scripts, so okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Do your own research.
I did.
Okay. So let's talk this through. So if we're talking about, let's say we start with Brian Kelly because he's the nice guy, right? I mean, arguably you could say the same is more true for Mark Hunter, not for Hard Harry, his alter ego, but Mark Hunter is this kind of a nebbish wallflower type. But yeah, I'll go with you that Brian Kelly he also seems to me like the younger of the three. I think that makes the most sense. So he's a young guy. He's I'd go so far as to say he could maybe be a sophomore, probably a junior in high school.
Yeah, I was gonna say probably 15.
Yeah, a lot of these people in these high school movies, for some reason, they're always juniors who played by 30-year-old actors and actresses. In Clueless and Mean Girls, those are all juniors in high school people. Those are not seniors. They're 16-year-olds. Makes no sense.
Shit, what about Andrea on 90210? She was 30 something.
Yeah.
Playing a freshman.
I always thought it was
Well-
really unbelievable, though, that the characters in Clueless and Mean Girls both are juniors. Because I'm like, how do you rule the school when you're not even a senior? That doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense.
Yeah.
11th graders don't rule the school. My kid's in 11th
Oh.
grade. Tegan's in 11th grade, and like, they're not like, one of the plastic popular kids. But I see those kids at the school, and the juniors aren't in charge of shit.
Heather Chandler ran the school, and she wasn't even a senior.
That's true.
Exactly. So we start with Brian Kelly, and he's like whatever. He's a junior. He makes sense. He's like 16 years old, skateboarder guy, and like to your point, he runs afoul of this like Vietnamese organized crime organization, this smuggling ring where they're smuggling weapons into Vietnam to ostensibly fight against the communists. It was an anti-communist movement, but criminals be criminals. Because that white guy, whatever his name was, that was like the big bad guy in the movie. I can't think of what it was. He didn't give a shit about Vietnam. Like, let's be honest.
No, he just wanted the money. It's all about the money for him.
What's that character's name?
I know. I'm looking over. Ed.
good Lord.
It was Ed Lawndale,
Lawndale,
played by Richard Hurd.
There you go. Yeah. So Lawndale didn't give a shit about Vietnam or the Communist Party. He was just making some money, right? So Lawndale's organized crime, connections. They come after Brian and his family. They kill Brian's family. His mom. They kill his mom. They kill his dad. And the FBI or whoever, they gotta swoop in and get Brian out of there, because now they want Brian to testify, because Brian knows about Lawndale. Hell, maybe Brian saw the whole thing Punisher style. He saw these guys drive up on him on the park. These mobster guys take his family out, and he sees the whole damn thing. Maybe he gets hurt too. He takes one to the arm, and the FBI guys they spear him out of there, and they take him to, well, it's got to be New York then, right? Because
Mark was in New York before he went to Arizona, so that would make sense that he goes to New York first.
Okay, I don't remember if Mark was a senior in Pump Up the Volume. I think he must have been. I don't recall, but just with the kids that he was running with, I feel like they were probably seniors, but that would make sense. So let's kind of fill in that gap in between. So if we're saying that Brian Kelly becomes Mark Hunter, so how does that happen? So he goes to New York with the FBI. And what? Like, we know Mark had talked about missing New York, so Brian must have been there for a while if he could miss it later, right?
Right. Well, maybe. Okay. So, well, hold on a second. I want to just backtrack for a minute. In Heathers, does it ever say what grade JD is in? I know they say what the Heathers are not seniors, but did they ever say what grade he's in?
I don't think they do with him.
No.
But yeah, Veronica and the Heathers are juniors.
Yeah. The only other ones that I got that were clearly mentioned were Kurt and Ram. Are definitely seniors. So yeah, I could buy JD as a senior by Heathers. So I think
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. So the action, I think basically all of this has to take place in like 2 years. I think that would make sense, right? So Brian goes to New York. They put him in, like, he's got a fake name. They call him Mark. I mean, is he living with like a foster family or?
I would say. Mike? What if? Okay, so he's put into witness protection program because they're going to need him to testify. So they whisk him off from California. I think it was Orange County was where that took place, and Gleaming the Cube.
Yep.
They throw him over to New York City. He's given to a foster family, so that's going to be the parents we see in Pump Up the Volume, so Mark Hunter's parents, which also explains why he's not super close with them. They're not his real parents. They're trying their best, but he's just like, fuck you, you're not my parents. So maybe when he's in New York City, that's where he makes some other friends, because he does mention his friends back home in New York. So what if, like, he makes some friends there and all that, but then it's like, okay, you're gonna have to testify now. Like, he has to go to court, testify against these people that killed his real family, and then they're like, you guys got to get out of the area. Like, they knew you were in New York City. You have to leave, and they move the whole witness protection thing. Like, they have to move to Arizona. Maybe that's where they set up the dad with a new job, because he talks about how he got a new job in Arizona. So maybe it's one of those things where, like, look, we're going to move your whole family. We're going to get you out of Dodge. Like, you did what you did what we needed you to do, but we're going to put you somewhere else so you're not a target.
Okay. Let me pause just for a second there, just to add a little bit to what you're saying. It makes perfect sense, and I'm liking this more and more because, well, I don't know why, no, I know why. I know why. The reason is being 44 almost now is when I think of New York City and skateboard kids, I think of Kids, Harmony Korine's movie Kids from 1995, right?
Right.
Which is, I mean, let's be honest, it's a good movie, but oh god, it's fucking horrible. It's
I
horrible.
hate that movie.
What the movie is about,
I think there's one word that best describes the movie Kids, and that's icky.
Yeah.
The whole movie is just icky.
It's a movie that I should not have seen when I was 15, for sure.
It's a good story, but
yeah, well, the only reason I mention it now is because if we're talking like the late 80s, maybe close to 1990, I wasn't living in New York City at the time, but if Brian Kelly moved there and he's a skateboarder with an attitude and a chip on his shoulder running with a bad crowd, I mean, he's going to end up, hanging out with all these like, kids who are constantly like skateboarding in like Central Park or whatever that you see in Kids. I mean, there's like fucking roving droves of these kids, and I feel like it would be really easy for him to latch on to that, to see kids skating in the city. And he goes from having like his 4 surfer dude bro friends in Orange County to there's like a whole movement of like, urban artists and skateboarders and graffiti guys and whatever, right? And so he really takes to New York more so than he ever did when he was in Orange County, because like these are his people. And that's why he immediately has this connection that he then misses even though he wasn't there for very long.
Right. And just to point out, like if we're talking about the types of kids that were in Kids and the type of kid that Brian Kelly is and Mark Hunter is, the kids in Kids are fucking perverts. Like they're dirty little bastards.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So, it would make sense that the young and seemingly innocent Brian Kelly then becomes the fucking perverted introvert Mark Hunter after hanging out with all these little creeps.
Yeah, it's like it's like his trauma from his family past and all the the tragedy that happened there turns him into Mark Hunter, but this new world that he was exposed to inadvertently in New York turns him into Hard Harry, and it's like he goes into these different places.
Yeah. And but again, he like if we're going to examine the character from Pump Up the Volume, like he can't do it like in front of other people. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like he's very like he's introverted, but he wants to be like the kids that he knew in New York.
Yeah, exactly. So the only way he can be that, I hate to use the word like brave, but that, out and that extroverted and that like uninhibited is when he's hiding behind the microphone. Like that's when he can be that guy, like all those kids he latched onto and looked up to in New York. Whether he should have looked up to them is
that's questionable.
Yeah, exactly. But he obviously did. I mean, we're talking about a movie in Pump Up the Volume where, there's like simulated masturbation in the first couple of minutes of the movie. I mean,
yep. I was watching this at work and had to turn the volume down. I had to pump the volume down.
Why?
Because he starts moaning like a motherfucker, and people were in the lobby. I'm like, turn it down.
But
that's just a normal night in the hospital lobby. Come on, you know that.
No. That's a normal night in the ER lobby. I don't work over in the ER.
But Mike, I think you're missing something really important though. Like, did you notice that the title of the movie is Pump Up the Volume?
I know. I had to disobey.
Ooh,
wow,
you're a rebel.
Wow.
Just like Hard Harry.
Wow.
Just like JD.
Okay, so now Brian Kelly has transformed through his experience in New York into somebody who will become Mark Hunter and Hard Harry. So what happens? How do they get out of New York? Do we go with he testified at trial and now they're just going to go put him in witness protection, get out of the city? Do the mobsters like catch up to him because they see him at the trial or on TV or something, and they come after him and it becomes dangerous? Like, what's the drama that gets them all the way to Arizona, do you think?
Okay, let's take a look at this. So again, Brian Kelly, he was the type of kid that wanted to solve his brother's murder. Like he very brazen, didn't give a fuck, like, you know, what the authority said. He was going to get to the bottom of it himself. So this isn't the type of guy that would become introverted. So he goes, you know, gets moved to New York, like after his family gets killed. Like he's, you know, it's fucking scarring. You know, he's, like you said, he witnesses it. So now he's going to be testifying. But at this time, maybe he's still like, you know, I want to see those motherfuckers hang. Like he's like determined to put these fuckers away. And then, like, you know, he becomes friends with all these kids in New York, yada yada yada. What if after he testifies, like, and like loud and proud, like, you know, it's like a maybe like a televised court drama type thing, like points him out, testifies against him. What if at the court, like, somebody pulls a fucking gun and tries to kill him? Maybe he gets like shot in the shoulder or something. Basically something where his life flashes before his eyes. Something where it's like I'm gonna get killed, and that's why they have to move him out of the area, because they know he's there in New York.
Yeah, and like if this were some kind of a short film that would take place in between these movies that we would see, you know, someone releases a short film at Cannes or on YouTube these days, we would see that he befriends these kids in the park, or, you know, wherever he is, Washington Square or whatever the popular place is. You can tell I don't live in New York City. And what if it's like one of these kids that he's getting close to, who's kind of like the alpha in this group? He's a skater, but he's also dealing, you know, he's got a gun, and he's kind of opening up Brian's eyes to what it's really like on the street, you know. And of course Brian's loving this life because he's always been a screw up, a fuck up. He's, you know, he's always been attracted to this kind of thing, doing exactly what he's not supposed to do. I think his whole fucking problem, his whole life, is whether he was being like a rebel skateboarder or whether he was investigating his brother's death. He's never been able to like do what he's supposed to do. He always has to do what he's not supposed to. And so now, you know, he's attracted to these guys. And then, yeah, at the trial, it's like he's up there and he's testifying, and in the crowd, just, you know, in the viewing pews, there's just his buddies from the park, and you don't think anything of it other than, oh, they've come here to like support him. But yeah, right when he's like in the middle of his testimony, he like fingers the guy, names the name, and then this dude that he was like bros with in the park fucking stands up, pulls out his gun, and shoots him right there on the stand. Like, you know, like he wasn't above being bought, you know, by these mobsters who knew that he was getting in close with these guys, and that one of these skateboarder dudes, whether it was at the park or at the courthouse, they were going to get close enough to him.
Oh, I like that. Okay, yeah. So, okay. So now he's been not only shot and had his family murdered, but he's been fucking betrayed. So he's not going to know which way is up. Like, he's going to be just fucking lost.
And I think this is what helps to drive his two personalities when he gets to Arizona, because now he's like, well, I can't stand up loud and proud and tell everybody what I really feel, because last time I did that, I got betrayed by my bro and shot. And so he has to go underground as Mark Hunter, you know, hiding out on the steps at school, eating his blackjack gum. And the only time he can be himself, this new person that he's growing into, this like uber rebel, is to get on the radio and be Hard Harry.
Yeah. No, I like that. And because that, and then we can see it happening in Pump Up the Volume. Again, if we're connecting all three of these movies, we can see the character of JD slowly emerging, because he starts off clearly wanting to be, you know, like he's got a lot to be pissed about. Like, you know, life has kind of done this boy wrong. But he can only feel like he only feels like he can speak when he's you know, behind some anonymity, when he's, you know, the role of Hard Harry. So he's speaking out loud and proud, and he's influencing all of these other kids. And when what was his first reaction when he found out that he was having an influence on people? He backed the fuck off.
Yeah.
He was like, I don't want any of this, because all he could think, and if we're going with this idea, all he could think is, they're going to come after me. Like, I need to shut the fuck up, you know. But he realizes that he started something that he can't put a lid on here, and all the kids are asking him to come back, so he does, and he embraces the chaos of it. Nice. He starts to see like how chaos can, like, he can control the chaos, you know. So and that kind of culminates with the end of the movie, where he's just like, fuck it, the FCC wants me, you know, off the air, they're gonna arrest me, I'm gonna go out in a blaze of fucking glory and make my little radio jeep and drive around.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, the arrest at the end is a perfect way to ship him to Ohio.
Yes, exactly. So it's like, yeah, so he has this whole giant, crowd following him, hanging on his every word, and he realizes that like he can manipulate anybody he wants if he just lets himself do it. So then he gets arrested, basically, they probably wouldn't put him in or they probably wouldn't give him back to the same foster family, or maybe they're going to, maybe the fucking people find out that he's living in Arizona and kill his new family.
Right? Yeah. I don't know if we want to go that dark, but I mean, either way, it's either the mobsters are on his tail and they come and they kill his new family, or to your point, new family are like, you didn't tell us he was this fucking delinquent,
Well, wait, let's think about his father in Heathers. He's fucking crazy. He's a crazy guy. He's blowing up buildings with people in them.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, so what if he's like some ex-CIA guy or something like that? Go for it.
Oh, I'll say, no, that's awesome. Okay, so for whatever reason, like, fuck his parents in Arizona, his foster parents. Like, it doesn't really matter what the reasons are. He's out of there, and he gets busted, and the FBI or whoever put him in that witness protection program, they tell him, like, in private after the fact, like, hey, we couldn't get in the way of the FCC and their whole witch hunt because it would have exposed us and exposed you, so we had to just let it play out the way it played out to arrest Mark Hunter, quote unquote. But now that you're in custody, we can spirit you out of here, you fucking dipshit. Like, you weren't supposed to go and get in trouble, like it's like, it reminds me of like My Blue Heaven, right? With where it's the same character from Goodfellas. What's his name though? That Ray Liotta played. It's where
Henry Hill, is that?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Henry Hill, and he's in witness protection, but he keeps like breaking the law anyway, and he keeps getting in trouble. But it's like he's almost got immunity because he still has to testify. So yeah, we just make it that like, because he got attacked on the stand, he still has to go back and testify. Like, he has to finish the testimony. So he still kind of has this immunity. The FBI tells the FCC to fuck off. Like, you got your man, quote unquote, Mark Hunter. You can do whatever you want to that personality because that doesn't really exist. And then we're gonna haul Brian Kelly out of here, haul him over to Ohio, to Sherwood, Ohio, and they've got this like CIA assassin / fucking one-man SWAT team hold up, hiding out in Ohio because he's got every militant foreign government in the world with crosshairs on him because they've sent him into hot. I mean, he was on like, Dutch's team in Predator or whatever. Like, they sent him into like hot zones all over the world. And he was like, these 80s like military teams, they had like the blade guy and the giant gun guy, and they had like the explosive guy. And that's what this dude was. He was like the guy who could make like a fucking, bomb out of anything, like fucking MacGyver. And so they're hiding him out in New York, and they're like, look, you want to fuck around with these pussy foster families? Like, now let's see how you do with this motherfucker. He'll keep you in line. But what they don't realize is that Demo Dan or whatever his name is, like, he doesn't give a shit about little Brian, little JD, because he's so fucking bored living out in suburbia that he's like, look, if I got to be out here trapped in the ticky tacky boxes of white suburban America, then I'm gonna blow some shit up while I'm out here. And he starts like a demolition company taking down sky rises and like old buildings and stuff. And he's just fucking loving life. He doesn't give a shit what JD is doing. And that's why he's able to just be all out, all hours of the night, go do whatever he wants. I mean, at one point, Veronica asks JD, like, do you like your father? And he's like, I never really thought about it, because it's like, it's not even really his father. He's just some wacko that he's living with.
Well, and plus when JD is like telling his quote unquote backstory to Veronica, and he's talking about his mom walking into the building and blowing up and blah, blah, blah. It could be like the fucking Joker from Dark Knight. Like, yeah, his mom really died, but that's not how it happened. I'm just going to tell these stories because I don't want anyone to know who I am. That type of a thing.
Yeah, exactly. And he and this guy, this demo guy, like, they have this, now unspoken understanding, and that's why they have all these dumb jokes about like, hey dad, didn't hear you come in. Oh, hey son, forgot to introduce my girlfriend. And it's like, oh, the last time I saw my mom, she was waving from a library window, right dad? And it's like they both know that the other one is completely bullshitting, but they have this deal that they just go along with it. Like that's their equilibrium where they can both do whatever the fuck they want, stay under the radar, and just make the best of being stuck in suburbia.
Well, and yeah, that would make sense because he's like, right, dad? And he's like, yeah, right, son. Like, it's like he didn't know where the fuck JD was going with that. He's like, sure, why not? Like, I can't believe how well that fits.
Yeah, it's so good. I love it. No, this is so good.
This is really snapping together.
It really is. And of course, at this point, the hard, hairy personality has just completely, to use your point, snapped into place. Like he's just completely subsumed the Mark Hunter, Brian Kelly personality, and he's just gone, full anarchist. Because I think he's tried to be the good guy twice and it didn't work out. He tried to keep shit to himself and it didn't work out. And the only time that he ever is like really living is when he's skateboarding and breaking the law and getting on the radio and being completely extroverted and out there and crazy and manic. And he's just like, look, I'm going to keep getting bounced around the rest of my life, trapped in hiding. I can never be who I really am. Well, then fuck it. This is who I am.
And let's examine this for a second, because the first death with Heather, he is like, hey, let's give her basically I'm sorry, but liquid drainer cracks me up every time. It's not liquid Drano, it's a glass of liquid drainer. But like he's messing around with Veronica, and she's like, no, like, creamer and orange juice or whatever it was, half and half an orange juice, something like that.
Milk and orange juice.
Was it just milk and orange juice? I thought it was. I thought she.
Yeah, it was. It was just milk and orange juice, and they tried to put a phlegm globber in it, but they couldn't like hack it up.
Isn't that just like an orange Julius?
Basically. And can I say, I thought how unrealistic and unbelievable it was that they couldn't like hack up a phlegm globber. Because I'm like, JD chain smokes through the whole fucking movie. Yeah. You remember what it was like when you used to chain smoke? You'd be like hacking up like lung butter all day long.
Exactly. But now, so like that sequence where he pours it, she's like, makes the comment of like, no, we're not going to do that. And then they wanted something with a like something that she couldn't see what it was. So they put the lid on the mug, and then Veronica grabs the wrong mug. She grabs the one with the liquid drainer, and he's like, Veronica, like there's a moment where he's like, oh wait, shit, no, we shouldn't do that. There's that brief moment, and then he just goes with it. This could be like that tipping point where it's like, he's still not, he doesn't want to kill people yet, but he's just like, the whole embrace the chaos and see what happens. Oh, yeah.
So you nailed it. That's exactly it. This is the moment when we see him make that decision. That's perfect.
Yeah. And like, after Heather dies, because he looks just as panicked as Veronica at first when she dies. He's just like, shit. It's like, then he comes up with the whole suicide note idea, and then they get away with it. And he like, again, once more, just like with Hard on Harry, like he gets to that point where it's like, I got away with it. I can go bigger. So then the next thing is like, okay, let's shoot the fuckers. Oh, here's some fake bullets. Like they're German bullets that don't actually cause them.
Yeah. That's the trivia, right? Yeah. The Ichluga bullets, right? Which I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong, but it's German for I'm lying. That's what that means.
Yep.
Which is so funny. No, and I think you're totally right. And I think it makes sense too. Now that I'm thinking of JD's arc throughout the movie, I, growing up, never really thought that his plan to like kill the whole student body was premeditated from the beginning. I always just assumed it escalated after that first death and maybe the second ones with Kurt and Ram. It was like he realized he could get away with it, and he
needed to like feed something in him.
Yeah,
like, that's what it is.
Yeah.
We'll kill everybody. I'll be fine afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. But I've heard interpretations of the movie that point out the fact that, he went there specifically to, new school, like new bunch of like rubes to murder, and he had been planning it from the beginning, and that he seduced Veronica not only because he was attracted to her, but because she was his connection to like the popular kids and being able to like roam in those circles. And so I've heard the interpretation that it was completely premeditated from the very beginning, but I don't think it was. And I think the fact that it's not fits in better with this narrative, because he has that tipping point during the, is it going to be milk and orange juice, or is it going to be a bowl of multi-purpose deodorizing disinfectant?
Exactly. And again, like we see, like as it escalates and he brings it to the whole school, like what happened in Pump Up the Volume? It started off, he even mentioned, he's like, to my 3 loyal listeners. And then he realizes it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and he's affecting the entire school. So it's like, and then once he sees like they all want the same thing that he wants, he has almost like this cult-like leader response to it, where it's like, my people need me, like that type of thing.
Yeah.
Well, now in Heathers, he sees that like death is the answer. Like death is the result of chaos. And if everybody needs him, he's going to embrace that chaos and take them all out. They're all going to follow Hard Harry's lead.
Yeah. I think you're totally right. He spirals into this sociopathy where he has completely abandoned his Brian Kelly persona, his Mark Hunter persona. He's abandoned the empathy that made him miss his brother Vinny and want to go after the killers. And he's basically, at some point, he realizes that it doesn't matter how much good you try to do, the world will fuck you up. And so the only way that you can be happy or have any impact in history is to fuck the world up right back, Yep.
And feast on a turbo dog while you're doing it.
Keeps me sane. Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, I'm not sure like how much more of the story there is. It's a pretty simple idea to just string these 3 movies together, but I think we did a pretty good job.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't so much as improving a completely new narrative or a new story, because we didn't really add too much other than like the trial and the witness protection and all that. But finding a through line between these 3 movies
easier than we expected.
Well, that's the thing. It shouldn't have been that easy.
No, this is why I'm saying we should have thrown Binks in there somehow.
Yeah. I mean, we could have done more. I mean, we could probably drag it out to other movies. Yeah.
We could Cuffs in here so easily.
I mean, even when you think about like, oh, JD blows himself up, but maybe he doesn't. Maybe like not all the explosives go off. Maybe he just gets like real fucked up, and then he needs like a heart transplant, like an untamed heart.
That's good.
Oh shit! I was gonna go Interview with a Vampire, where he could become like he gets bit and becomes a vampire at the end. But okay.
Oh yeah,
we'll go with that too.
Oh yeah, I mean he becomes. Well, we do the movies out of order anyway, so at some point he's going to become immortal, and he's going to start traveling through time for Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and Young Guns 2. So we'll figure it out.
And then eventually he settles down and becomes a voice actor.
Eventually he becomes so psychotic, he's just a split personality of his son.
There you go.
Yeah.
And named Mr. Robot, if you guys didn't get that one. All right.
Well, and then eventually he becomes a superhero and he fights alongside Shark Boy and Lava Girl because he's in We Can Be Heroes, where Shark Boy and Lava Girl are all grown up and they have like a superhero team.
I watched that for 2 reasons. Christian Slater was one of them. Pedro Pascal was the other. All right, that was it.
Yeah,
and
that's all you need.
I ever needed to watch that movie again.
That's all you need.
That was it. Guess what? It was slightly better than Shark Boy and Lava Girl, but it still stunk.
No, it was vastly better while still sucking. So that tells you how good Shark Boy and Lava Girl is.
See, Maurice, I have someone on my side.
I have still never seen any of these.
Yeah. But in all seriousness, if you have kids who are into these types of things, Weekend for Heroes is a pretty decent superhero movie for kids, and it's only kind of a sequel to Shark Boy and Lava Girl, in that Shark Man and Lava Woman or whatever, like they're in it and they're grown up, but it doesn't have any connection to the other movie. And I do not like Shark Boy and Lava Girl either. My kids like it. They did at the time when they were younger, I should say. I understood why they liked it, but as an adult, I just found it insufferable. Maybe one of these days.
It was no Spy Kids.
That's true. Absolutely.
Never seen those either.
Actually, the Spy Kids ones are fine.
Yeah. They're corny, but they're fine. They're kids movies. They're fine. They're not terrible. But yeah, I do agree, though, to circle back to the Slaterverse movie here. When we came into this, I had a vague idea that we could kind of bend the rules and make anything work. We could make it the same guy. We could do some kind of a quantum leap situation where he's like living in different bodies or lives or whatever. I knew that there was something we could do, so I wasn't afraid. Like I sometimes am coming into these ideas like, oh shit, what are we gonna do?
Right.
I wasn't that nervous because I figured we'll make it work. And there's something there. The characters are similar enough that there's something there, but I really had no idea what it was going to be until we started. So this is pretty cool.
I'll be honest. When we first started discussing this, and you had mentioned in our Facebook chat the whole like maybe it's just like a reincarnated soul type of thing, I immediately went to Quantum Leap. I was like, when will the jump take him home? Like that.
Yeah.
Is it after? Oh
my
dark?
God! And that's how we get the Star Trek movie in here. All right.
Or hey, I'll say it right now. We could merge these ideas together. So like JD dies and he like wakes up in hell and he has to like make a deal with he makes a deal with the devil that he like wants to go back to Earth, like Spawn style, and like make up for all the bad shit that he did. But he gets cursed to like go live these lives of these other people, and his job is to be this agent of chaos. And he keeps trying to be the good guy, but it never works. And that's his hell forever. Is he can never be the good guy.
That is awesome.
So anyway, thanks, Don. I appreciate you coming and joining us.
Yeah, I mean,
this was a lot of fun.
I kind of just sat back and let you guys go. I was just here for your Heather's facts. Like that was it. Just
that's all we needed.
Make sure your Heather's quotes were correct.
Yes.
I didn't even bring up the fact that I've had a conversation with Christian Slater about Heather's. That's it.
Well, you should tell us
there
about
you
that.
go.
Yeah, tell us
No,
about it.
it was at a Comic-Con. It was at a Comic-Con. He was actually there promoting Mr. Robot. And they didn't want anything else but Mr. Robot. Now that wasn't him. That was his people. This is only for Mr. Robot. But I ended up I was like, look, I got to tell you, Heather's is like my favorite movie of all time. Like my brother forced, and yeah, there you go, Tony. I dropped you in here. My brother basically forced me to watch it as a child, and he's like, your brother's pretty cool. And and that's how the conversation pretty much went. I tried to get him to sign my copy of Heather's, but they would not let me do that, which I have like the collector's edition tin where if you open it up, there's a little yearbook in it. There's rulers. There's all these stickers. But my autograph that I got from him is in that tin now. So that's how I know where it is. But yeah.
Nice.
So.
That's stupid though that they wouldn't let him sign. Like
he was only literally there for like 2 hours. Like it was. I wasn't even supposed to get in there to get an autograph. You had to be in like a certain line at a certain time, which nobody knew except for like a handful of people who were like following a Twitter account somewhere. And so I ended up, that group of people I followed to work because they were like, yeah, he's going to go sign blah, blah, blah autographs for those people who were blah, 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 And so I followed that group and I ended up getting in because they're like, oh yeah, we still got some more time. And there was like this little girl right behind me and I turned to her mother and I was like, no matter what, you guys are coming in, because she was a fan of Mr. Robot. Actually, this little like 9-year-old girl was a fan of Mr. Robot. So I was like, don't worry, we will get her in. And so I like grabbed her hand and pulled her in with me. So
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Speaking of brothers, the movie occurred to me. I remembered it. Earlier, I was trying to remember what it was that my brother wanted to cross over with Solar Babies, and it was Prayer of the Roller Boys. That's what we need to do.
That's right.
And I should have remembered
God.
that one because my son's name is Griffin, and Corey Haim plays Griffin in Prayer of the Roller Boys.
I have not seen that movie since I was a kid. So,
Well,
yeah.
you know what? He's listened to this. He's already messaged you like 4 times. Like,
Yeah.
we already know. He's like, how dare you guys say rollerball? How dare you?
How dare you? How dare you when you know it's Prayer of the Roller Boys? How dare you when you
Yeah.
named your son after Corey Haim in Prayer of the Roller Boys and then you
And
couldn't
all-
even remember the name of the movie?
All you're going to have to do is like wait till you get to 1 hour and 20 minutes or whatever it is. I don't even know what it is.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
We get to it. We'll get to
Yeah.
it. Just
No, no, no,
wait.
I totally forgot that Patricia Arquette is in that movie too. Shit, I just looked it up. I'm gonna have to watch that again. Mike, we're gonna have to watch these together and do an
Well,
episode.
Right.
That's
this
how
season.
that's how we get to true romance. All
Yeah.
right. Okay.
Nice.
I was
Nice.
actually
All
looking through the Christian Slater IMDb and realizing how many movies of his I haven't seen in years. Like we were talking about Cuffs, like when we first hopped on here, I was like, man, I haven't watched that in I don't know how fucking long. I barely remember anything from it.
Mhm.
And then there are movies that I just haven't watched that have always been on my radar, like Alone in the Dark.
Oh,
Yeah.
please don't do it. Don't do it. Do not do it.
And-
Do
and
not
that's-
do it.
That's exactly why I haven't, because I'm like, okay, I loved the first 2 video games that came out, and I know for a fact that movie has
Oh.
absolutely nothing to do with the games.
Oh,
And it was him and Tara Reid.
it was Tara Reid and Steven Dorff.
Oh,
All right.
Jesus.
This is what I'm
Yeah.
going to tell you. I believe it's an Uwe Boyle movie, by the
Oh,
way.
that makes
Yeah.
perfect fucking sense. That guy.
I believe I don't know for sure. I don't know. I did see it, and it's very funny trying to hear Tara Reid try to say big words. All right, because she plays a scientist. So
Yeah, Uwe Boll, he's the director. I'm looking at it right now.
yeah,
Oh god.
yeah.
And unfortunately,
Oh,
there's
my
actually some movies of his that I'm not really interested in seeing again. Like I'm sure Bed of Roses was a perfectly fine movie, but I don't care. Like I don't know.
Right.
We'll see how that one fits. Maybe someday. I don't know. I don't know if I want to go
Eh.
back.
Yeah, we
How
don't-
far back do we want to go? Like Beyond the Stars or Desperate
We-
for Love? You know, his before he was a leading man.
Like, do we really need Untamed Heart? Like, does it really need to be in there?
I mean, I do love Marissa Tomei. She makes everything she's in. But
I
yeah,
mean-
he didn't have anything to do in that movie. That was the problem. It was a Marissa Tomei movie where he just kind of walked in and out of scenes because he barely said anything. He had no personality. He was supposed to have no personality. Like that was his character. And yeah, he's forgettable. I love Christian Slater, obviously, but he's forgettable in that movie. But it wasn't him. It was the character. But Marissa Tomei like chews the scene. So I'll still watch it. But yeah, there are some that how I watched The Wizard and he's only in it for 5 minutes.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, like we could connect Broken Arrow to Hard Rain somehow. Like that.
Yeah.
That seems like an obvious move.
Yeah, I
Because-
feel like that can work.
Oh my God, guys, we could have gotten Very Bad Things right into this one.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's true. It's true. It would have fit right in. JD
Damn it.
survives, and that's him years later.
That's another one I haven't seen for about 20 years.
Oh yeah.
But I remember like the first time I watched it because I had heard very bad things about that movie.
Oh,
And,
no, that's
yeah, like,
wrong. That's
a lot
wrong
of-
at all.
A lot of people told me it wasn't good, and I was like, it looks funny. And I remember when I was living in Rochester, it was like the first couple of months of living there. I went to that. I'm sure Josh, you'll remember the Best Buy that was like right around the corner from my apartment.
Mhm.
I went there and they had like a bunch of these movies in a $3 bin. And one of them was Very Bad Things. And I was like, well, fuck it. I've never seen this. $3, I'll buy it. And I went home and watched it. And it was just like, first of all, I loved it. But I was not expecting it to go so hard so quick. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
Jesus. Like,
Yeah. But you know, sometimes a movie is ruined by a bad title, like Horrible
Yeah.
Bosses, and in my opinion, Very Bad Things. I think
Mhm.
it's not a great title for the movie, and while it's descriptive and so is Horrible Bosses, it's not very creative, and it doesn't really get you excited to want to go watch the movie. You know,
Right.
I don't know. Have you seen Horrible Bosses? It's pretty damn funny.
I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I'm saying it's a boring title. It's like
Yeah.
Okay.
it's such an on the nose title that they just like couldn't think of anything better. They couldn't find some pun or something or some song lyric or title or something to reference. So they just literally named it what the movie is. And sometimes it's a little boring,
Yeah.
It's like there was a trend in Marvel Comics in the early 2000s where suddenly everybody had to have superhero names that were just their power, like speed and stature. It was like you couldn't even come up with anything interesting. It was just like, what does this guy do? Like, there's literally a character called Gold Balls on the X-Men. Guess what he does? He makes gold balls.
Oh, okay. Woo, I went somewhere completely different with that.
Yeah,
I mean,
got
that
really
guy
obvious.
exists too, just not in this Marvel universe. See, it's the porn universe.
This has absolutely nothing to do with anything we're talking about other than, Josh, you mentioned like X-Men. This has been bugging the fuck out of me for the last couple of days. You might remember this. Who the hell was that character who was, I don't know if he was on Excalibur or X-Force, maybe he was one of the Starjammers, but he was this character who was like a swordsman, but his mutant power was just making noises. Like he could just...
Kylan.
Thank you. I was like...
Excalibur, yeah.
Because I was talking about Echolalia the other day, and I'm like, wait a second, that's like that X-Men. Like, so his power was autism? Like...
Basically. And the only reason that anybody even remembers him, because he was like a minor character in Excalibur for a few storylines in the 90s, but the only reason that people even remember him is because he had a badass trading card in that X-Men set where Jim Lee drew every single card, and he looked so cool. But he's not cool in the comics.
I only remembered him because of that. Well, again, of that trading card, and I remembered the action figure that Toy Biz made of him, just because he was like a dude with two swords, and I'm like, that's cool. I don't know who this guy is, but he's a cool swordsman.
I don't remember the whole backstory, but it's something like he's like a regular like human child who is trapped in this like barbarian world, and he either takes over the body of another guy or he like adopts the characteristics of the people who live in this fantasy world, and he becomes this cat-like warrior, but he's really just like a kid, who can like literally copy any noise that he hears. It's a little weird.
That's very strange, but that had nothing to do with anything. It was just like I had you on the phone here, and I'm like, oh shit, I gotta ask while I have you.
You gotta find out. And I'll say one more thing before we wrap it up too, which is I did a little Googling while we were talking, and I looked up moviesbyminute.com, and sure enough, there is a podcast, Pump Up the Minute, and I have downloaded all the episodes already. It came out in 2020.
Check that out.
I'm telling you, Strasburg, me and you, we just take each movie, we just do our own podcast for each movie. I'm telling you, we call it Talk Hard, and we're on this.
I'm telling you, I think you should do that. I think you should start that podcast, and I'll be on it. But I don't have time to do a whole other podcast. I can barely do this one that comes out twice a month.
Right. Yeah, there you go. If you start that podcast, just we'll all guest on your podcast now.
I don't have any room on my computer for that.
Come on, Podcaster General. Stop making excuses, Podcaster General.
Do the Christian Slater podcast.
Christian Slater
has other ideas. No.
Talk hard. Let's do it.
I'm almost guaranteed that probably already exists.
It probably
probably does.
We'll have to Google it. But anyway, Don, I appreciate you coming on. Thanks once again for guesting on Raised by Rentals.
I kind of was just here, so
That's okay.
Yeah,
that's okay.
I was just along for the ride, guys.
It was still fun.
Any excuse to watch Heathers, I'm there for it.
That's all you need.
I mean, I don't need an excuse.
I was gonna say, do we need an excuse?
I'll probably turn it on right now.
Yeah. I'm gonna go finish watching Pump Up the Volume. I gotta actually pay attention to it this time because I was so busy. But yeah, if you're still here, you're still listening to us, and you want to check out some more podcasts that aren't about Christian Slater, that aren't called Pump Up the Minute, then you can check us out at raisedbyrentals.com and at radpantheon.com. Our super team up of podcasters, artists, musicians, the art collective of creative friends supporting each other and helping to spread the word about rad stuff, not just Slater stuff, but all kinds of rad stuff about toys and music and The Simpsons and horror and you name it. So, Mike, what you got going on in the Rad Pantheon these days?
Well, over at the Boogeyman's Closet, we're about to start my month, which I'm just we decided that on our birthday months for this year, we are going to just pick a bunch of movies that we want to have on the show and then have people vote on them. So it is a very eclectic collection that I'm really happy with some of the votes we're getting. But the next movie we're going to be covering is VFW. And it's looking like Green Room is going to make the cut because it seems a lot of people really want that one, and I fucking love that movie. So I'm excited about that. And of course, there is Count Creepyhead's Saturday Morning Monster Mash, where three grown man children, bitch about pop culture and talk about toys. I think we are taking a slight hiatus on that because I know Josh has Assembly Required coming up, and really looking forward to hearing the stories from that. But so he's in full on work mode right now, and I'm not sure if me and Mike are going to do some other kind of stuff or if we're just going to take a break because I know we're both working a lot of extra hours right now. So
there's always time for a dumpster theater fire.
Well, and that's what I was wondering. I wasn't quite sure because like I said, I knew his work schedule has been really hectic. So I'm like, I don't know if we're going to do that yet. I'm waiting to see what happens. But I'm always down for that. I'm down to watch crazy ass movies where Gene Simmons plays a cross-dressing terrorist.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, what about you, Don? Want to plug anything?
Don don't care. Just look that up. Yeah, no, it's on probably just the TikToks, the Instagrammies. And March, I don't get a whole month, but I'll get an episode of the Boogeyman's Closet. We're not discussing what that is. Just say it's long overdue.
Well, this is overdue. And it's a good place to mention this. Now, it will be coming up on the actual show pretty soon, but we will be taking a extended hiatus on the Boogeyman's Closet. I have a lot of other projects coming up that I have to focus on, so I unfortunately will not have the time to prep and edit and record the episode every week. So we're going to take a couple month hiatus. So Dawn's episode will actually be the only episode coming out in March. We will still probably do like one episode a month, basically Patreon style, or like where we're going to do our anniversary episode, stuff like that. But we will be taking a few months off, and then we're going to come back, and we already got a plan for what we're coming back with. So we'll come back probably in either June or July, and with a vengeance, because we're going to have a bunch of movies that people have asked for.
Don't worry. The one we're going to end on is strong. All right?
Yes.
It's a strong one.
Dawn has a very good pick, and it is one that many people have asked for already. So
nice.
we will be we're making this year a year to cover a lot of movies that we haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. And now my wheels are spinning because while I have made some questionable choices for Patreon choices for my episodes, including one that should be out by the time this episode airs, I actually have a whole list of movies that I would have picked for my Patreon, except I keep expecting you guys to do them because they seem so obvious, like what about this and that?
No, there's been several like that. Like, and I do the same thing. You're not alone in that, Josh, because like with my birthday picks, I did the first year where I did A Nightmare on Elm Street, because I'm like, oh, we haven't covered Freddy yet. Of course, Nightmare on Elm Street, perfect. And then every time after that, I've picked like a movie either that fit the theme, like Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight, or something that I personally love that's divisive, like It Follows. And then I'm picking VFW because I don't know where else to put it on the podcast. Like, I can't think of a month that it fits. Damn it, I want to watch a bunch of old men kick the hell out of drug addicts. Like, it's funny as hell.
Like, I almost had the idea this year to let the listeners pick mine, like give you 4 and have them vote on it. But mine, once me and Mike confirmed a few details, we were good on it. So maybe next year.
And yeah, like I said, coming when we come back, it will be a month of just movies that should have already been on there but haven't for one reason or another, whether it be like it didn't get enough votes or it wasn't streaming at the time that we were doing something. So I already have a list of films that I want to make sure happen this year, and most of them are big name ones.
Nice. Yeah.
So.
I'm glad you mentioned that too, because even for Raise by Rentals going into season 3, I have a list of topics that we've talked about covering. And while we have gotten ourselves kind of painted into a corner in the past, insisting that we do something and putting on the schedule and just doing it anyway, even if we didn't really have an idea. This year I have some stuff on there that is like stuff we've been talking about since like day one, since we first started thinking about making the show, and we kept putting it off because we had another idea. So I'm like, this year we're actually going to go back to the well and do some of those classic concepts that we keep talking about, but they keep getting bumped for one reason or another. So it's like, stop bumping them. Let's check them off, get them done. And while we've had some rough episodes in the past where things didn't really gel that well, I think this episode is a really good testament to how sometimes we don't have to come up with like a whole story beginning, middle, and end. We can just kind of riff on some cool ideas and, fill in the gaps on something. And it's still a lot of fun. I still think it was really successful. And it makes me feel better about some of the other ideas we had where we know it'll be fun, but it's like maybe not beginning, middle, and end fun. But hey, let's go, goof around with it anyway. And, and just see what comes out, and kind of mix up the format a little bit, just like we were talking about doing more originals this year. So anyway, just a heads up, everyone out there who's listening. So once again, I appreciate everyone for tuning in to the Raise by Rentals program. If you had fun with us, visit us on the socials, drop us a line, leave a comment, leave a podcast rating, let us know what you think we should improve next time, and if we should have Don back on the show. But for now, I'm Josh.
I'm Mike.
I'm Maury Safler.
And I'm going to get the fuck out of here to return those videotapes.
Talk hard!
Raised by Rentals is a member of the Rad Pantheon network. Visit radpantheon.com to support rad stuff. The theme music is Forbidden Fruit by Velvet Bethany. You can purchase music and learn more at velvetbethany.com.
I don't know what's worse, being blown up in a nuclear war or having a 7-Eleven on every corner.
All I could do is drive out to some stupid mall. Maybe if I'm lucky, play some fucking video games, smoke a joint, and get stupid.
There's always been a snappy snack shack. Any town, any time. Can pop a ham and cheese in the microwave and feast on a turbo dog. Keeps me sane.